In this segment, we are going to continue our discussion on marketing research, but we're going to look at it from a specific problem approach. In other words, we have an issue that we need to solve, or we need to address or find out more about something specific we're looking for. How do we go about doing that? And this is what the research process is all about. The research process has 7 different steps. I have them listed here. They are in your book. We are going to go through each one of these individually, so please don't be concerned that you have to write these down or anything like that. Let's start by taking a look at step 1. Step 1 in the research process is to define it. What is it we want to do with this process? What kind of problem are we looking for? So we're really setting some objectives. It is important to set these objectives because it keeps you on course. What you'll find as you start doing research is that it's very easy to find information that's interesting, that's nice to know, and you can start going off on tangents exploring that nice to know information. We want to avoid that. We want to make sure we're spending our money wisely. As I said at the end of the last segment, research is extremely expensive. So we need to be cognizant of that and be very good stewards with that resource. So we want to make sure we're staying on course. So our objective should be set. What is it we're trying to accomplish? What specifically are we looking for? Who are we looking for in that information? Where are we going to get it from? Are we looking for our target market? Are we looking for people who don't like our product? Are we examining a whole new area? For example, maybe we're involved in consumer marketing right now and we're considering going into industrial. So what group of people are we interested in getting this information from? That's our population of interest. We also have to understand the environmental context. In other words, is this going on during a time of the year when people are very stressed out, say Christmas time? There's a lot of stress, time commitments. The last thing people will do is cooperate with research at that point. Is there things going on in the economy where people are going to be very negative about new products, about risking money, and therefore any kind of survey results are probably going to be skewed because they are biased based on the current economy. So those are just some examples of what we're looking for with the environmental context. The second step in the process is to actually design the research. How do we want to go about it? What kinds of approaches are we going to take? We will be making a decision whether to use secondary and or primary data. To get secondary data, you do secondary research. To get primary data, you do primary research. You should always do secondary research first. Okay, that should be a given. Secondary data is information that's already available. It was collected for another purpose. You can get it from a lot of different sources. You can get it from inside your own company, previous research you have done, your sales reports. That information may already be there. But you can also go outside your company and look online, as long as it's a reputable source, at government publications, journal articles. You can find a lot of information by looking at past research that's published. You want to be careful with secondary data, though. There are some problems. First of all, it may be out of date, so make sure you check to see if it's still timely for your needs. There may also be some questions about how this information was collected. So you need to know enough about research to be able to look at this and say, is this good stuff? Can I use this information? Or did they go about it in a weird way? For example, many years ago, I saw a commercial on TV where an aspirin company, who shall remain nameless, advertised that their product was chosen and preferred by 4 out of 5 doctors. Well, you know as well as I do that that claim goes on all the time. And I wondered, how could that be? So I wrote to the company and I asked to see their research. By law, they have to supply that to me. So I got their research study, which was way thick, and basically what it came down to, the way they collected the information is they set up displays in different stores of their product, and they had somebody standing next to it with a clipboard. And whenever anybody came over and looked at the product, touched it, picked it up, showed any kind of interest, they asked them what their occupation was. As soon as they had enough people, say doctor or physician, they could check it off on their list, their research was done. This information's not good information. You know, a lot of doctors went over to the counter and picked the aspirin that they like and they use all the time, but they weren't counted in this study. But the law says that you have to be able to back up your claim. It doesn't say it has to be scientifically valid. So we want to make sure that the information we use is good, solid information. Okay, if we cannot find information that fits our needs exactly, if it's out of date, if we're unsure about the collection methods, then we probably need to do some primary research in addition to the secondary. Primary research is research we collect ourselves for this specific purpose. And there's three main categories that we look at here. The first one we have listed is exploratory. And exploratory research is very open-ended. We probably talk to a smaller group of people, it's more informal. We're trying to get some guidelines on where should we go, what should we explore. An example of a technique that is used in exploratory research quite often is focus groups. With focus groups, we get usually 8 to 12 people together. We video record it. We have a coordinator who is overseeing the process. This person's usually strong in behavioral sciences as opposed to business. And their role is just to introduce questions and get the group to discuss it and to brainstorm with each other and react to each other's ideas. So we may bring up a question and it's the discussion that we're very interested in. This might be to get new ideas, or it may be to see if some new ideas we have would be accepted. An example is when I was a young mom with 2 infants, they were both in diapers, I received a phone call from a company asking some preliminary questions. I evidently met their qualifications and they asked me if I would participate in a focus group. The questions they had asked me were about what diapers I used, and at that point I was using Huggy diapers, disposable diapers, and I was very loyal to that brand. So I guess staying home with my boys had kind of turned my brain into mush or something, and I thought that going into this focus group we would all just sit around and talk about how much we love Huggies. And that wasn't true. There was 12 of us there. 6 of us were very loyal to our brand of disposable diapers, and 6 were very strong environmentalists. So just think about that for a minute. There was built-in conflict from the get-go. This focus group was sponsored by Procter & Gamble, as they told us later on, and they were trying to develop an environmentally friendly disposable diaper. So they brought out product offerings, they asked us questions, they had different materials for us to test, and we couldn't agree on anything. So you kind of walk away feeling like, wow, I really let this company down, but that's not the truth. We saved that company a lot of money. That product was never on the shelf. Evidently other focus groups agreed with ours, and such a product was never developed. Now, a descriptive research, which is our second collection type that we could do there, descriptive is going to use large groups of people, look for common statistics. We may use questionnaires to do this. But the key here is that we're talking about a large number of responses that we're really trying to get. Who buys our product, why they buy our product, what influences them, etc. And the last one we have listed is causal. And causal research is looking for cause and effect relationships. A common technique we use in causal research is experiments. We may set up like a test market, which is a type of experiment, where we control the variables of our product, of our packaging, of our pricing, of where it's being sold, and we see if the target market responds appropriately according to our strategy and our objectives. If not, we'll go back and change our strategy. And there's other types of experiments as well, but that's the most common type. Okay, so those are the first 2 steps. Now, if we have used secondary data, we could probably skip step 3. if we had good secondary data. However, if we have to collect primary information, this is what we need to spend some time talking about. We're going to have to go through some different ways of collecting it. We may use observation to collect primary data, and this can be done mechanically. For example, you probably go to a grocery store and have a little member card of some type, and every time you go through line, you scan that card. Well, what that does is it gives us information that goes right into our database. We know what you bought, how often you buy, how much you pay, what promotions you respond to. We can make a good generalization as to how many people are in your family, what the ages are. We can look for connections, and I'm just making this one up. Do people who buy canned soup also tend to buy People magazine? And if that's the case, we know there's a tie in there, and we may want to help some of our suppliers and say, you know, advertising in People magazine is a good thing for canned soup manufacturers. So we're looking for some connections there. So by using those scanners, that's the type of observations. Also, security cameras give us a lot of information. We play those back at fast speed, and we can see traffic patterns. We can find bottlenecks. Displays people are walking past and not seeing. We can kind of see problem areas in that manner. But what I want to spend some time talking about is the survey method. And survey method means we're trying to get information from you and give some information. There's an exchange going on here, and you're fully aware of it. Okay, you're participating in this. Sometimes, for example, with that observation, I may be observing you in the store. I personally may be like pretending to stock shelves and be watching your behavior. You're not aware of it, but in survey you are. We can get this information in a number of different ways and places. The first way we can do a survey and send out some questionnaires is through the mail. And you probably think initially that that is not in a very effective manner. It's actually very good. With a mail survey, you don't need a high response rate. Many times 3 to 5% is extremely acceptable. What we're looking for is not how many returns we get, but if they are representative of our target market. And if they are, we're probably getting some good information. Mail surveys really need to be short. People aren't going to spend a lot of time filling out lengthy surveys usually, unless there's some kind of inducement. And that happens. Times I've gotten money, I got a calculator. Sometimes you get coupons for a product, or if it's from a company that you deal with, they may send you some frequent flyer points, something like that, to try and encourage you to fill out that survey. You've probably gotten some if you've ever bought a new car, for example. Dealers usually send those out as well as manufacturers. So even though you get some people who fill them out and say their name's Donald Duck and give you stupid answers and things like that, the vast majority of people do not do that. So it is a cost-effective way of collecting information. It's not very expensive. Again, you're going to have a low response rate. The other thing you need to be aware of is it takes a while for the responses to come in. Most people don't go out to their mailbox, pull it up, say, oh boy, I got a survey, I can't wait to fill it out. And they run in their house, fill it out, and put it back in the mail. It usually sits around for a while before it's actually completed and mailed back in. So if you're looking for a fast response, you don't want to go with a mail survey. But if time's not an issue, it may work for you. Telephone surveys is another method we can use. With today's do not call list, it's really kind of put a damper on consumer telephone surveys. I encourage you to participate if you can. This is not a guarantee, this isn't official, but in my personal opinion, I usually tell the difference between a survey and a sales call depending on that introductory statement. If they say, I have a couple questions for you, it should only take a few minutes, it's probably going to be a sales call. The reason is a telephone survey is going to take a substantial amount of time. They have to find out your current behaviors, your predicted behaviors, your motivators. They have to get demographic information from you. It's going to take 10, 20, 30, maybe even longer. And what's more, they're going to tell you that up front because they don't want you to start completing their telephone survey and then get tired and hang up in the middle. So they're going to tell you up front how long it'll take. So that's usually what I use as a judge. Telephone surveys are also very effective in the B2B market. It's a good way of getting information. Most companies are more than willing to participate. They know this information is going to benefit them in the long run. And to be honest, their research department's probably doing some as well. So that you're usually more likely to get cooperation, except you usually have to schedule an interview time to do that. You can't just call and expect to catch the purchasing agent, for example, available. You have to schedule that. Face-to-face surveys are very effective. It allows us to get very in-depth and really explore people's motivations and influences. We may do the face-to-face in people's homes, which does not happen very often anymore. But it could also be, for example, in a mall interview, what we call mall intercepts. And you've run into these people before. You go down the aisle there at the mall, your arms are full of packages, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Can I ask you a couple questions?" They ask you those questions and they say, "Okay, thank you for your time. Have a nice day." And you walk away. And it's funny, when you watch people walk away, they're usually all grumpy, like, "Why'd I do that?" Well, you know what? If they said thank you and you walked away, you're actually a loser. They rejected you. They did not want you. Depending on those qualifying questions that they ask you, they're looking for their target market, the population of interest. If you fit in that, they're going to take you into a back room and do things to you. And it's really cool stuff. They usually compensate you in some way. It may just be like $5. Wendy's, for example, is known for doing this. When they're bringing out new hamburgers or they want to test a new type, they'll do mall intercepts. And so when they take you in that back room, they have different types of hamburgers for you to taste. It's a very common practice, and it's actually fun to participate. So if you get that opportunity, I do encourage you to do that. The last type of survey method that we are going to discuss is an online survey, where people fill out the questionnaires actually online and submit them. Now again, just like the mail surveys, this is very cost effective. It is not expensive at all. Your response rate will probably be a little bit higher than the mail, but not significantly higher. But where you get a real advantage is the time element. Okay, those come back instantaneously and you get your results. The downside of an online survey is that there's a built-in bias. There is going to be a preference towards people who use computers regularly. So that can be okay as long as you're aware of it. Step 4 in our process is sampling, and this means who are we going to talk to. Your book goes through this pretty well. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but a probability sample means everybody in a population has a certain percentage chance of being chosen to be in the sample. A non-probability means we're looking for a specific person or type, and so not everybody has a chance of being chosen. We're really looking for something more specific than that. And it all comes down to our objectives. Our next step is to actually go out and collect the data. Many times we will hire people to come in and help us with that process because it can be pretty extensive. We will then analyze our results once we get them in. We are going to be looking to see if it's reliable, meaning if we did the study again, we'd get the same results. And we want to make sure that our information is valid, that it measures what we wanted to do, that it got the information we needed. And those are key components we're looking for, and software packages can tell us if our information is reliable and valid. Our last step then is to prepare the report. This is a key thing to keep in mind because usually the person doing the research is not the decision maker. They're not the ones who are going to be using the information. So we need to make sure we write a very clear, concise, and objective report for the decision maker. Okay, so in summary, we want to make sure that we are very ethical in our collection of data and also how we report it. We want to be very open and honest and objective. And even though I tried to stress it's important to do research in an organization can exist without research. but they're going to be missing a lot of opportunities. Have a good day.